Good evening and welcome to Greater Somerville for May 17th, 2011. I'm Joe Lynch.
I'm Cayenne Anderson.
Our guest tonight is Congressman Michael Capuano of the Massachusetts 8th Congressional District, a former multi-term alderman at large, and mayor of the city of Somerville. He has represented the people and interests of the Massachusetts 8th District in the United States Congress since winning that seat in 1998. The historic 8th Congressional District has, in the past, been represented by the late President John F. Kennedy, the late Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, and former Congressman Joseph P. Kennedy. A candidate for the United States Senate in 2009, he currently is serving in his 7th term in the United States House of Representatives. A graduate of Dartmouth College and Boston College Law School, he and his wife are residents, I'm very proud to say, of Ward 5 in the Winter Hill section of Somerville. It is my pleasure to welcome for his first visit to Greater Somerville, Congressman Michael Capuano, representing the 8th Congressional District in Massachusetts. And welcome to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
How are you? You didn't mention the most graduate of Somerville High.
And a graduate of Somerville High School. I won't say the year.
1969.
There you go. There you go. There's always a
You can all figure it out now.
There's always a debate, though, Michael. People in their 50s, you want to say, oh, it was sometime in the 70s.
It's just, a lot of my friends didn't make it this long. So.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've got a busy week this week in the district. You're trying to get to as many people as you can.
Yep.
The invitation has always been open to you. And when I talked to your staff person, I said, you mean to tell me that Mike Capuano actually watches Greater Somerville? And it kind of threw her for a little bit because we razzed you last week. When Gene Broom came on to talk about not running, possibly not running for a registry of deeds, I went through the list of former mayors who have been on the show. Dorothy Kelly Gay, Gene Broom, Bill Roach, current Mayor Curtis Tony. And I looked at the camera and I said, we got to get Mike Capuano on the show.
Here I am.
See what power?
The power of
Little
Greater
did I know.
Somerville, yeah.
Little did I know.
I had the opportunity to do it. I'm glad to be here.
We welcome you, and this won't be the last visit. You come back anytime you want.
Yeah.
We'll shove any of the aldermen out of the way, and we'll put you on. So it's a pleasure to have you here. We have a quick snap quiz for you. We know that you have your own show.
I love quizzes.
You have your own show on Congressional Update, and it airs here on Cable 16 in Somerville. So we have a quick pop quiz for you.
Yeah.
What Ward 5 candidate in a campaign promotion piece once declared, save your hands with this jar opener, save your city with...
Insert name.
Was it John L. Sullivan, Sean O'Donovan, Stan Cody, Andrew Capuano, Joe Macaluso, Joe Lynch, or somebody else?
It could have been any one of the above. Mm-hmm. Those things don't get passed out too much. I passed some out. I honestly don't remember what it said on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mike Capuano, this is your life because we happen to have found in the back utility drawer at my mother's home a jar opener that says exactly those words.
That's pretty old, Joe.
Wow.
We think it probably dates, Michael, from the 70s, from the late 70s. So with appreciation for saving the hands many times of my mother with the jar opener, that's for you for the annals in your office there.
It actually looks pretty good.
Did you ever think you'd see it again?
Well, I actually keep a little stash of all the things I've had.
Yep.
I haven't looked at them in a while, but I gave out rain caps at one point, little change purses.
The jar opener, that's a clever idea.
Yeah, gave out rulers at one point.
And let me tell you something, Michael. My mother's voted for you for alderman ever since.
For a penny investment.
There you go. There you go. On to more serious things. We have one more thing, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, because you know the question is on everybody's mind. We've got a couple of candidates already announced for running against Senator Brown next year in 2012. Alan Casey says he's in. Bob Massey says he's in. And the latest one is Seti Warren, mayor of Newton, who says he's in. Would you like to say anything at all to satiate the public.
Well, I mean, I've told everybody for a while now that I'll make my decision by the summertime.
Yep.
And I will. I think that I've never run for a race because that I didn't think I could win. And I do that because it's not fair to me, it's not fair to my family, it's not fair to all the people that I asked
Right.
to support me, if I don't see an honest path towards winning. Now, I have lost races and I've won races. But at the moment, I'm still trying to figure out whether there's an honest path to victory. Running is fun, and I think actually I could win the primary. You never say easily, but I think I'd be the front runner in a primary. But it's not a primary win that's important. You have to win the final. And,
That's right.
and Scott Brown is a popular guy at the moment, and I think with a difficult primary with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candidates, whatever the number's going to be, we have a late primary in this state, and I think that people need to take account for that in a practical way. It means you have to raise and spend a lot of money, and you wake up September 15th, or whatever the date is after the day after the primary, and you have no money, you have a fractured party, and you have to face somebody, in this case, is a popular incumbent with a lot of money. It doesn't mean it can't be done, it just means it's a more difficult set of circumstances than this state Democratic Party has faced since Ed Brooke was United States Senator. We have not defeated a statewide Republican incumbent since Ed Brooke was a senator. And I think people have to take that as a real test of whether this is doable.
You know that we could spend a whole hour talking about what's happened to the Massachusetts Democratic Party, but
Right.
we have so many different groups with so many different special interests, and there are so many candidates that might come forward.
Yeah.
Let me ask the question a different way.
Okay.
If that field contracts by, say, a certain date,
I don't think the field will contract. Because, look, I would be amazed if anybody would be out there right now announcing for a major race, asking people for money, asking people to support them and work for them and volunteer for them if they weren't serious about it. So I presume that everybody who was announced is committed. And so therefore I'm not, and I'm not a big enough fish in the pond to knock somebody out of the box. So I presume that they would all stay. And the truth is, it's not about whether they do or they don't. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm not really worried about winning a primary with the current field. They're good candidates, they'll all be good senators, but I built up a lot in the last campaign, a lot of goodwill across the state. People from all across the state are calling me on a regular basis, and that's not self-aggrandizement. People are doing exactly what you're doing.
that's right.
And
People
it's
want to
very-
know if you're in, you're out.
And it's very nice, and it's a fair question to ask at the same. So therefore, it's not the primary, but it is the final. I'm not interested. I don't think it would be fair to say, Joe, I need your support. I want you to donate money and donate time and work hard for me so I can win a primary. I don't think I can
Right.
win a final.
Right.
That's not fair,
Right.
and I won't do that. So I'm in the process now of trying to finalize my own thoughts on that, and I think it's a practical necessity that I get it done by the summer.
All right. Here's the deal. You want to announce on Greater Somerville, I'll move any of the guests out of the
All
way.
right, fair deal.
There you go. So let's move on to your current work in the Congress. You've been doing a lot of work with Sudan. I see is back on the table, but we'll come to it in a little bit. One of the major issues that's been in the forefront is obviously the president's decision to, once they had located bin Laden, to go after him.
Right.
The hows, the whys, the results. Your thoughts on it?
All good by me. I mean, I voted to send troops to Afghanistan for the very purpose of killing or capturing bin Laden and his followers, and I think it's a good thing to have done. I think that from everything I know about it, the president made the right call. I'm particularly happy that it worked out well. The SEALs are amongst the best military people in the history of the world, and the fact they were able to accomplish this and with no collateral damage is a great victory. At the same time, nobody can take this as the end of the war on terror. But I'll be honest. I need to clarify. I've never supported the war in Iraq. I didn't think that was part of the war on terror. I thought that was an
You've
adventure.
said it consistently. I mean,
And I have.
Yeah.
I've asked for the withdrawal from Afghanistan now for about 2 years now, and not when we went in to get Al Qaeda. We didn't go in to build a country. We didn't go in to build democracy and do all the other good things. That's not why we went in. If I had been asked to do that, I would have voted no. I don't think you should do that on a military basis. We went in to get Al-Qaeda, to deny them a safe haven and to chase them out. They're gone. They're in Pakistan, they're in Yemen, they're all over the world, and we need to chase them where they are. What we did in Pakistan in this particular case was the right thing to do, and I'm particularly happy and proud that it was well executed.
Now, what happens, Mike? I mean, just because the figurehead is gone doesn't mean the organization is dissipated.
No. I think just the opposite.
We've seen the recent bombing in Pakistan itself.
Right.
I mean, that proves that they're still out there. They've still got a mission, and they intend on carrying it out. I
have no knowledge of it. I'm not so sure anyone does, but I would fall into the category of people that think that it's probably a little bit more dangerous right now than it was before. If I were a member of Al-Qaeda, I'd want to show the world that I'm still a viable force.
Yes, that's a good point.
And I don't think that's anything other than common sense. So I think that it's right this very moment for the near future. It's probably a more dangerous time than we have seen for a while.
Well, all the reason for them not giving the rights of the pictures, not exposing the pictures and publishing them. That was part of it, right? I mean, the idea was they disposed of everything properly, and they didn't want that to happen in order to, ignite. There's already this kind of anger towards everything. I think that was a smart move.
Right. Did you have any need to see those photos?
No, I don't have any need to do it. Look, no matter whether the photos are shown or not, there's going to be some people that think they're doctored or they're fake or whatever.
Okay.
I believe bin Laden's dead. His son has said he's dead. Al-Qaeda has said he's dead. I believe that there's no reason that I think it'd be too big a conspiracy. I'm not a conspiracy type of guy.
Right.
So I believe he's dead. I have no personal or political or governmental need to see gory pictures, if you want the truth.
It raises an interesting dilemma, though, now that these groups supposedly have no figurehead to look up to. And they'll start scattering all throughout that area. Right. Is it going to be wise for the United States to stick to the schedule for the pullout in Afghanistan and in Iraq?
I think the answer is yes. Again, this is not an organized force of stand-up military people. This is a terrorist organization.
Right.
And so therefore, if they saw a force of 100 U.S. soldiers, they're not going to fight them, or very seldom will they fight them. They'll run, and they'll wait to catch one or two here or there. And they're not really there to fight the American military. They want to terrorize their own people. That's what they're interested in.
They want power and control.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think, again, I think we should have withdrawn from Afghanistan. I still think that we should at the least, stick to the timetable that we have now, if not accelerate it.
Guerrilla warfare, they'll just lay in wait.
And that's what guerrilla warfare is. And this country still believes that stand-up warfare is the way of the modern world. And I keep getting amazed by that. It's generally not the case.
Right.
It hasn't been the case since World War II.
Well,
maybe Korea.
I know you're a little bit of a history buff in American history. I mean, isn't it amazing that we are almost of the mindset that the British were in 1775 and 1776, that they were fighting the rebels hiding behind brick walls and stone walls, but they couldn't get the concept that it was a different type of war.
The American forces won a handful of stand-up battles in the Revolution, and not more than a handful. And we won almost none without the help of the French or other significant forces. So it's not new, it's old, and I agree with you. I think that we have fallen into the trap. We certainly did it in Vietnam. I think we did it in Iraq 1. We're doing it now again in both Iraq and Afghanistan. We're falling into the trap that I would have hoped we would have learned our lesson already, but apparently we haven't.
Well, let's move into, you're going to be getting into some nasty budget sessions.
Been pretty nasty.
Our brethren with, the scissors, not even surgical knives up there. They've got chainsaws and everything else ready to go at some of the things that are near and dear to your heart, some of the social programs that they're ready to cut.
Well, I come from especially here in Somerville, many people remember when I was mayor, I made tough decisions that I didn't want to do but were necessary. Just like we all do in our own personal lives. We all want to drive Mercedes and jet off to the Bahamas every winter. But we don't do it because we have to make tough choices. And I did it when I was mayor, and I'm more than willing to do it now. I agree that we're in a tough situation. However, I will not do it if it is only the social programs that are on the table. We have to talk about agricultural subsidies. We have to talk about the Defense Department. We have to talk about increasing revenues on some people. And if all of the items are on the table, then I'm willing, not happy, but willing to also take some cuts in the programs that I happen to like. Things like senior housing, things like feeding children in school. There's 1,000 things.
It's all about negotiating.
And-
You've been doing it your whole life.
And it's all about being fair.
Right.
And it's kind of funny. The other side wants to talk about picking winners or losers, but they do it to the maximum extent when they say we're going to zero out funding for rural housing. Now, I don't have any rural areas, so theoretically I shouldn't care, but I'm an American. I don't want people in Appalachia living in cardboard boxes any more than I want somebody in Union Square living in a cardboard box. So if they put everything on the table, I am willing to do things that I don't want to do, which is to cut programs that I support, as long as they are treated fairly in relationship to other programs. There should be no sacred cows, but that's not the approach they've taken so far. They have their own sacred cows, and their sacred cows have not been touched.
And the question, Mike, will always come down to, can you trust them to do it at a later point?
No, I don't trust them.
Oh, we just got that. That's good.
Let's put that down.
That's what it's all about. You do it now. And what is it that you want? You want something, I want something.
Yeah.
We need to work it out now.
Yeah.
And again, if we both walk away from the table a little unhappy, that's success.
Yeah.
But if I walk away totally unhappy and you say, I'm just getting started, I consider that a defeat.
You know, there's many constituents out there. I mean, this is, blue collar city, if there ever was one. There's a lot of people out there who, we have our ears to the ground with people, and they say, well, what is it about these guys? How come they can't find anything to cut? And I have to say, well, your mom still receives her Social Security check. Would you like to see them do that for the 3 years in a row, no cost of living increase? Oh, no.
That's different.
You understand it. I mean, you've been in politics for
Your
years.
children get subsidized lunch at school.
That's right.
Or if not your kids, your neighbors'
That's right.
kids.
Yeah.
But here's the problem, I think, Mike, that the general population has their trouble wrapping their mind around. We have a $14 trillion debt.
I don't know anybody who knows what that number really means. I mean,
It means that we have borrowed
I know.
more than we have taken in.
yes, we have.
Because anybody out there who has a credit card or a debit card or a checking account understands when you overdraw that, you go into the red.
Right.
So in very simple banker language, we're at $14 trillion, $15 trillion in the red.
And when you find yourself in the red, you don't get out of it overnight. And you throw everything on the table. We
Agreed.
can't even talk about accelerating the withdrawal of troops from Iraq. The entire Iraq war has been paid for on that credit card.
Correct.
The entire Afghanistan war has been paid for
Correct.
on that credit card. The massive Bush tax cuts, now twice extended, have been paid for on that credit card, and we can't talk about any of those things.
Right.
Those things are off the table. It's like,
Right.
wait a minute. So the first thing you're going to go to when you want to address this deficit, which we all agree has to be dealt with, the first thing you want to go to is fuel assistance for the poorest people in this country. The next thing you want to go to is senior housing. They've slashed senior housing. My argument is I will be willing to take a nick on those types of programs. Though I don't like it, I understand we'll have to have shared sacrifice, but the word shared is a critical aspect of this. Everybody has to do something, and those who can afford more should do a little bit more. So I don't think there's any debate about whether we need to deal with the deficit. There's a debate about what and how quickly. And we've been in a deficit situation almost consistently since World War II. And the only time we get out of debt is when we did it over a 9-year period of time with increased revenues from Bill Clinton and the Democratic Congress and tightened belts with the pay-go rule,
Yep.
which I was one of 19 people that voted to keep when they expired in 2002.
You do it during the boom times.
They do it during the good times, and
Yeah.
you do it thoughtfully and over a period of time. We didn't get into the trouble overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's perplexing because the average guy at home is sitting there saying, why are they going to raise the debt ceiling? Only spend more money.
Well,
You know?
because like anything else, when you're in the hole, sometimes it's not, nobody wants to do this, but if we don't do it, I mean, everybody knows where we live. We live within, I have 34 colleges and universities in my district. I have some of the smartest people in the world, including some of the smartest economists in the world. Every single one of them is scared to death that we don't increase this debt ceiling because of the havoc it will wreak on all of us. It's a terrible thing to have to do. It's a situation I hate being in, but unfortunately, there are times we have to be mature adults. And
I'm going to get blasted for saying this one, but here's the most simple analogy I can give.
all right,
You are maxed out on your credit card, but you have no gas in the car, and you have to get to work or you'll lose your job. What do you do?
oops.
There you go.
You borrow
You're going to have to
$1.
put more on the credit card
Yeah.
and put gas in the car and go to
And I
work.
agree that should be done simultaneously with thoughtful approach on how to deal with that credit. There's no question. But a thoughtful way to do it is not the Speaker of the House coming out and saying we're going to raise $2 trillion, we're going to slash $2 trillion. There is no way that they can slash $2 trillion out of this budget without seriously hurting vulnerable people and the middle class. It's not just the poor people. We're talking Pell Grants. That's mostly the middle class, the Pell Grants. We're talking, again,
These are student loans.
Medicare.
Yeah.
Everybody's seen the proposal that was put on for Medicare, make it a voucher program. I don't know anybody in this city
How about
who has
that?
told me
How
that's
about
what
that
they
Paul
want.
Ryan? He's smoking something, wasn't he?
Paul was elected the same year I did. I like Paul. He's a very smart guy.
He is smart,
He's a
but
true believer. He's just wrong. And he believes, and this is where the big debate comes in Washington. There is a significant number of people who totally believe that the government has no role to play in
Right.
your individual lives. And I respect that position.
unless they needed them.
Well, but these people would even not agree with that.
Yeah.
But I would argue that everybody thinks, most everybody I know thinks that Social Security is a pretty good program,
Yeah.
Medicare is a pretty good program, public education is a pretty good program, police, fire, all fixing the streets.
Yep.
All of it's public. All of it's paid for by taxes. Everybody I don't know also would say, well, we should be able to cut these things and this thing and this thing, and fine. I've been in public office now, as mayor now in Congress since 1990. I have never had anyone come in and say, you know something, Mike, this is the program I care about, and I know you got a tough time, cut my program. I've never had one.
Give us a call if that ever happens. We'd love to have that person on the show. Yeah. What have you got? Anything on the
Well,
national
we're talking
level?
about deficit. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you got me caught off guard. I was
I
paying attention
did.
to
I
everything you
know.
were
I
saying.
mean,
Well, we're talking national level, but I'm curious. I mean, I've lived in Somerville for 10 years now, so not quite as long as you. Although,
A newcomer.
yeah, I know I'm kind of a newcomer, but there's a lot of things going on in Somerville that I think, especially since you were in office as mayor, that I'm just fascinated by. There's a lot of developments going on. We've got Assembly Square. That was a big deal going through, and I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are in terms of, where you see it going, and I know you've been involved with a lot of the initiatives.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, I was mayor for 9 years, and Joe knows we had a lot of major fights over a lot of major issues. It was a much more tumultuous time, and I look back on it. I can't tell you how proud I am of the progress we made in the city over that period of time. I don't think we did it alone. I think we stood on the shoulders of people who came before us, but I think we made it clear that Somerville was a place that good people want to live. And the good thing is that's a better place to live than someplace everybody wants to move out of. The bad thing is, of course, it's raised property values so that some of the very people that I was trying to help can no longer afford to live here. We never was able to find that balance, how to figure that out. But I think it's also, if those are the two choices you have, either people want to get out or people want to come in. You always want the one where people want to come in. That's what you want to do. So we've done that, and honestly, when I left being mayor, it's kind of funny. I've had a lot of elected officials say, well, I'm not done yet. Well, you're never done. If you're done, you really should just retire. I wasn't done. I had a million other things I wanted to do, but, like anything else, it was time for somebody new, and I had an opportunity to move on, and I did. But I'll be honest with you, for years I was worried that the progress that I thought we had made might be temporary. I no longer feel that way. I think that the progress we made is now permanent, because I think it's entered the psyche of the average Somerville person that they deserve better. I'll be honest with you, when I became mayor, I thought that many people thought, well, it's just Somerville, it should be bad.
It's always going to be this way. Right.
And I think the main thing we changed was the attitude of the average people that if you get involved and you stand up and you want this, you'll get it. And I think for a while there were elected officials that fought that. I think all elected officials now accept that as a view. And so that being the case, I'm very comfortable that the city's moving in the right direction. It doesn't mean that I agree with every single
It's
thing that's been done.
still a double-edged sword, though, Mike.
It still is. I totally
because
agree.
gentrification is here for
Yes.
X number of years, and it's
I
the
agree.
very same people that all of a sudden are taking two steps back, saying, "Oh, wait a minute.
I agree.
You know, with the Green Line coming and Assembly Square moving forward, all this stuff, we're not going to be able to afford to live here. We hear that more and more every day.
That's a fair point, and for me, I always struggled, I still do, struggle how to balance it.
Yep.
Because I lived through the bad times, as you did, Joe, and I don't want to see that repeated, where house values plummeted, where my whole generation was raised to think that success was measured by how quickly you get out of the city. And there are very few people my age that grew up here that are still here. Mm-hmm. And now, don't get me wrong, there are many people my age that would love to move back but can no longer afford to do it. Right. So that's, I think your point is 100% correct, Joe. I think the balance should be in the front of your mind, but you can't let the fear of that stop
hold you back. Right.
Right.
Well, I would tell you, representing 70% of Boston, and you've got Cambridge and Chelsea.
Yep.
Somerville, Cambridge, Chelsea, 70% of Boston. I think most of the issues that you face, on a daily basis, your constituents back home. Forget about what you do up there on Capitol Hill. I think it's pretty much the same in the metropolitan area. People are worried about the cost of living here.
Oh, yeah.
People are worried about the cost of health care, cost of education for their kids. I mean, all that stuff.
Most are struggling. I mean, most of my constituents are working middle-class people. They're not poor, but they're struggling to make sure, and they all know that they're 1 or 2 paychecks away from being poor. And I agree with that. I think that it's not uniform. We do have very poor people. We have some very rich people, but the vast majority of people live in 2-family houses, 3-family houses, or right next door to one. So it's pretty uniform. I also think that the philosophical view is pretty widespread. I think the vast majority of people believe that government can and should play a positive role in making life better. I have a handful of people who think the government shouldn't be involved in anything, and that's fine. But I agree with that. I think I won't say we're monolithic, but at least we're in the same chapter of the same book, not necessarily on the same page. Yeah. And it's kind of funny, especially when I stepped out of it and went down to Washington. That really came close because no one in Somerville ever thought of me as a liberal. Until I get elected to Congress.
When my father held signs for you, he never thought you were liberal, because if he thought you were liberal, he never would have held a sign for you.
But what I found out later on is that, guess what? They didn't know it. They were a liberal. They are liberal compared to the rest of the world. They just may not be liberal compared to their neighbor.
Michael, I want you to make us a promise that you'll come back anytime you want to. Is there anything you want to say to the folks at home before we sign off here?
I'm glad to be home for a few days.
And they're sure you don't want to add your name to a roster that's out there or anything?
That's just
I tried, folks.
He's pushy.
I tried.
What can I say?
I tried. I want to thank Congressman Michael Capuano for joining us tonight, representing the 8th Congressional District here in Massachusetts. As always, folks, thanks for joining us tonight. Stay safe and stay informed.
Good night.